goodness, y'all. It's like 1:30 in the morning, and Claire here from Perceiving a Life. I have not quite woke up yet, but at the same time, I am so thoroughly awake. I might not sleep tonight. Okay? Got my scarf back on. I told you in the last video about what that was about. If you hear any noises in the background, it's either the dog losing his mind, or it's Ryan with the police scanner going, because as I've mentioned before, we could not live anymore in the middle of town. And I'm not even talking about a suburban area. I'm talking thoroughly and completely urban. We have one of the last houses on our street and in our neighborhood that's still a house. It's not like an apartment, hadn't been bulldozed to make a parking lot. We have one of the last houses here. So, with that being said, I was checking out. Honey, will you pass me the mouse for the computer? It should be right there by your hand. Thank you. I was checking out some videos this evening because I don't sleep. I get too depressed and too anxious to sleep. But I recently found Teal House Farm. If you're not familiar, definitely go over there and check them out. I am completely in love with their channel and what they're doing. But, oh my goodness. I was watching their video, the one that says a new to us toy. Now, I was watching that video, and I know they've got small children, so any kind of shrieks and giggles and everything like that, I just write off as being in the background of their videos. But I was watching that video, and I heard the most blood-curdling scream that I've ever heard. Now, one of the other houses that's still a house, because it's on a historic road or something like that. Indiana's weird. Hold on, please, scanner's going. What's that?
No, it's calling for status for a cop.
Okay, status. Status is why we're here. So, I was watching their video, and I heard the most blood-curdling scream that I've ever heard in my life. And it carried on in several bursts for over a minute. And so, in a previous video that I did not upload, that I'm not going to upload, I was showing some of the firearms that we have in the house. We have swords hanging on the wall. I have several different personal defense weapons. And I grabbed up a little faux pistol. It's a BB gun, but it looks like a little pistol. I grabbed it up, shoved it in my pocket, and I said, "Ryan, get up." And he got up and threw his shirt on real quick, and we ran out the door. And the silence outside would have been normal if I had not just heard what I had heard. He heard it too, and it kind of woke him up a little bit, but he just assumed he was dreaming it. But this was the stuff of horror movies. This was the stuff of nightmares. And it was a woman, a younger woman by the sound of it, maybe even my age. This was a younger woman screaming bloody murder in several different bursts. And the silence afterwards, when we finally got outside, was, they say the silence is deafening. The silence was deafening. And by the time we finally got outside, it took us about a minute and a half, 2 minutes to get dressed and get outside? About that. I mean, we've got a really good response time from our local responders. I really thank our first responders because, they've been nothing but nice to us, And we definitely rely on them as being a part of our community that we can rely on, and they have not let us down that I'm aware of. And so they had 4 of them walking up the alley behind our house, and 2 of them went on down somewhere else toward the convenience store on the corner. And one of them stopped and talked to us because we were about to go out. I'm just going to be perfectly honest. We were about to go out and get some cigarettes because we were out, and it couldn't wait till morning like I was planning earlier. And then one went on up to the fire station right in our backyard. And they asked us some questions, and they took down our number and the driver's license number and our address and everything. And but I mean, we called the cops. We called just the local police dispatch, and they said that somebody up here on Main Street had already called it in, and they already had officers responding. And when they had officers responding, they had several, and I mean 6+ cop cars coming out there, taking a look at it. Anything? Okay. And just kind of talking in the background. But we had just a big old scare tonight because we've had to call them a couple of times. People trying to beat on our door at 4 o'clock in the morning, trying to get in. Just some different things. I had a scare today. I didn't call them, but I had a scare today. And it's just about the area that we live in. It's not a bad part of town, and this is not a bad part of the country, but we just get a little more activity here. You know, they had a bunch of cops out here within 2 minutes. And, you know, they talked to us. They talked to the local businesses that were still open. And anybody else. We had a ton of our neighbors standing outside. A bunch of people heard it. And they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Now, about 15 minutes later or so, they did have an ambulance come through, but we had the scanner going, and it sounded like it was from a separate call. But anyway, people talk about living in an urban environment, doing some urban homesteading, and doing things like that. And while we don't have to worry about things like coyotes getting our livestock, we do have to worry a little bit about some different challenges that you get to experience in an urban setting. And those are things that you might not necessarily have to deal with anywhere else. You know, if I lived out in the country again, which was where I was raised and where I've spent a lot of my adolescence, you know, if we had anything like that, if we had anybody come up in our yard like that, it'd be a warning shot in the air, and it wouldn't be anybody thinking anything of it. It'd probably be enough to take anybody, you know, right back on off the property. But if I did that here, in the middle of town, in the middle of Indiana, this is not Tennessee. And so, if I did that here, I mean, I'd probably go to jail. And it's just not, I think, something that people think about. And if it is something that they think about, it's exactly the reason that they left the city. And it's one of the many reasons why I can't wait to get back out into the county, you know, in a rural setting, and, you know, not have to deal with society on a day-to-day basis anymore. But that is our middle of the night update that I hope to never have again. But I'm trying to document everything that I can. So anyway, have a good night. I'll be on tomorrow, and we'll see you around.